Canelo obviously is with you till the end of the year, but I'm sure he's spoken to you about he wants to make history, and it looks like at light heavyweight it's going to be Biev or Joe Smith Jr. Has he spoke to you about that in his plans to possibly face?
No, I mean the plan right now, of course, is Dmitry Bivol this Saturday. That's the full focus. After that, you've got Gennady Golovkin possible trilogy in September. After that, we talk about a London fight or a Mexico fight to close the year off. And I think realistically, the undisputed 175-pound fight will come in Cinco de Mayo next year. If that doesn't get made, I think you have the cruiserweight fight as well. You know, people talk about Usyk, etc. I think AJ will beat Usyk. We'll see, but that's not something that we're actively looking at or negotiating. He just believes he would beat him.
And Eddie, be remiss. Okay.
Benavidez, I think that's a big fight. But again, I think Sal's mentality is, as I said, the last 10 fights against 8 champions. Give me the champions. Ultimately, the fight against Benavidez and the fight against Charlo are just voluntary defences of his 168-pound title.
Would he have to fight Benavidez?
Could do, but again, another voluntary defence. If you said to Sal, what would you rather do? Fight Benavidez in a voluntary defence or fight Biev for the undisputed light heavyweight world championship? It's not even a conversation. Benavidez and Jose Benavidez, they genuinely want big fights. It's embarrassing who they're fighting. Charlo, it's embarrassing who they're fighting, time and time again. Why don't you make Benavidez against Charlo? Why don't you make Benavidez against Plant or Plant against Charlo? But like you got a promotion, you're giving them all these easy fights for all this money. They can't sell. They're not selling these fights. You're just burning money. So get the guys together, make the fights. I don't know Charlo personally. I know Benavidez. I've been around him. He wants big fights. It's their job, the PBC's job, to put him in big fights, and they're not putting him in big fights. He's a very good fighter. A Canelo-Benavidez fight could be a massive fight, but it's nowhere near the size of what it could be.
So when you say Charlo doesn't deserve a Canelo fight, do you believe Yildirim was more?
No, it was a mandatory. If he didn't fight him, then he would have had to vacate the belts, and he couldn't become undisputed at 168. You know what Canelo Alvarez did? During a pandemic, in 10 months, he had 4 fights in 10 months. He boxed Callum Smith, and then he was told by the WBC, if you don't fight Yildirim, you lose your belt. Therefore, he can't be undisputed. He went out after fighting in December and boxed in February, right, during a pandemic to beat Yildirim. Then in May, he boxed in front of 76,000 people at Dallas Cowboys to dethrone Billy Joe Saunders. And then in November, he fought Caleb Plant. You talk about 10 months, he had 4 fights. So I'm not saying that Charlo's not a great fighter, but you're calling Canelo Alvarez out without. Who's his next fight against Charlo? Sulecki. Lovely kid. Sulecki.
What'd you think of 164 pounds with Spence? And
What? I mean, you think Canelo is motivated, going back to that offer, you think Canelo Alvarez is motivated to fight a welterweight at 164 pounds for no title? Like, it's like desperation. It's like, shit, who else have we got? Offer him Spence. You know, I mean, you talk about a 147 pounder. They want to move Errol Spence to 164 pounder. I don't even reckon they had a conversation with Errol Spence. It was just like, how else can we stop Canelo Alvarez going to Matchroom?
Would be a big fight at Cowboy Stadium.
It would be a big fight.
Wait,
but Sean, Canelo, when are you guys going to learn what Canelo Alvarez is all about? Right? Legacy, champions. Of course he wants to make money, but he wants to go in there on Saturday as a challenger against Dmitry Bivol and rip the belt off him and take that back to the change room, put it down and have the photos and say, I nicked another one.
What about the old eye test? What you say is true. They don't have titles right now. Charlo and Benavidez is 68 or 75, but to fans who say, I watched them fight, I think they're more dangerous fights than Ryder, Bivol and Biev.
He hasn't boxed Ryder yet, and he hasn't boxed Biev. How can you say that Charlo is a tougher fight than Biev? Are you mad? How can you say that Charlo is a tougher fight than Dmitry Bivol at 175 pounds? Absolute rubbish. Who has Charlo ever beat? Tell me the names of someone Charlo's beaten.
J-Rock was unified champ. Went on to become Ring Magazine unified champ.
Go on.
Sorry. Austin Trout.
Come on, man.
You asked that.
But what stage? I mean, you're talking about. Go on, keep going.
Sergey Derevianchenko.
Okay. Still struggling to see any, big names.
Eye test, Eddie.
Now tell me the recent run. Tell me the last 3 fights. Sulecki, Montiel,
What do you think about that performance then?
Terrible. But I don't blame Charlo because he's fighting the guy he's not even motivated to fight. Charlo's an outstanding fighter, but you're not going to see that unless he steps up and fights a real fight. Just put him in with Plant. Put him in with Benavidez.
Who do you fancy in those fights?
I think Benavidez could be the best of all those three.
Do you believe